Welcome back to Learn with Chris. I'm Chris. So in this video, I'm going to finish our prefixes for building vocabulary. So this will be the 7th video for a total of 35 different prefixes. I've kind of run out of prefixes and there's not very many left, so I'll end it with this video. So our 5 prefixes for today are intra, which means inside of or within; ultra, which means kind of like super, like Superman, supernatural, beyond. So it has the same meaning as beyond, but ultra also means like extreme. Pseudo, which means fake or false or pretend. X, like EX, which means out of or away from. And infra, which means under or below. So our first word, intra. Intra meaning, it's a Latin word and it means within or inside. So kind of like inside your body, right? Or inside something else. So our first example is intravenous. Intravenous. So this is a medical word, and if you have a needle and it's going to stick into a vein in your body, that would be an intravenous. Also, you might have heard IV, as in an IV drip. If you're at the hospital and they got that bag that's dripping, that's an IV drip, intravenous. It's inside the veins of your body, giving you whatever medicine is appropriate. Another word is intramural. Mural means wall, so it's inside the walls or within the walls. But what does that mean? Well, intramural means inside the walls of a school. So it's like, we use it for like competitions or contests or sports. So it isn't sports between different schools. That would be inter. Instead, it's inside. So if it's different teams inside of the school playing against each other, that would be an intramural competition. So it's inside of the school, basically. Then we have intrastate, inside of a state, or even like intraprovincial, inside of a province. So maybe a law, intrastate, an intrastate law, or intrastate commerce, or something like that. It means inside of the particular state of that country. Our next example is intranet. So we can compare intranet, which is an inside network, so it's inside of a company, to internet, which is between, right? So internet is the network between all the computers in the world, and an intranet it's the network inside of a specific company or organization, right? So it's like a smaller version of the internet, but only inside of a company or within a company. And our last example is intracellular. So that means inside of the cells in your body. So like a biology, that's a biology word. I don't know very much biology, so I'll just say the word and leave it at that. Within a cell, intracellular. Our next prefix is ultra, another Latin word, and it means beyond or extreme. First example is ultraviolet. You might have heard of UV rays before, UV light from the sun. So that's ultraviolet, and that means it's beyond the violet. So what we got here is the light spectrum between violet as the short wavelength and red being the longest wavelength. So if it's less than the violet wavelength, what we mean by violet and red, that's the spectrum of what we call visible light. You can see it with your eyes, right? But ultraviolet is going to be smaller than we can see with our eyes. So it's a wavelength that we cannot see. We can use, of course, technology to see it, but with our eyes we can't. So it's beyond the violet, basically. Then we have ultrasound. That's, again, beyond sound. And ultrasound, of course, we have ultrasound machines in hospitals to detect like babies and other things inside of the body using sound to detect. It's a medical diagnostic machine. Our next example is ultramodern. Now, this is not beyond modern, but it's extremely modern. So you could have like an ultra-modern home, which has maybe like advanced technology and AI equipment or refrigerators or windows, or like a smart home. That would be an ultra-modern home, right? So it's extremely modern, right? Then we have ultra-conservative. So again, this is a political term. You could be, of course, in the center, you could be on the left, you could be on the right. Right typically means conservative, but if you're very right or very conservative, you could be called ultra-conservative, which means extremely conservative. And our last example is ultralight, but not light as in this, but light as in heavy. So extremely light, like a feather. A feather would be ultralight. It would be very, very light. So it weighs almost nothing. Okay, our third prefix is pseudo. This is a Greek word, and pseudo means false, pretend, or maybe fake. So anything with pseudo is not real. So our first example is pseudonym. Nym means name. So it's a fake name or a false name. Pseudonym. Don't pronounce the P. The P is silent, so it's pseudo. Pseudonym. So this normally comes up with authors where they write their books. They're not going to, sometimes they don't use their own name. They'll use a fake name to write the book. So the book will be under a different name. It'll be under a pseudonym, a fake name. Why do they do that? Well, there's different reasons why they don't want to give their real name, but it's called a pseudonym. Our next example is pseudoscience. So that's fake science. So it might look like science, it might look real, but it won't be backed by any experimental tests or research or anything like that. So it's a fake science. So you have to be very careful about pseudoscience because it's not real. Then we have pseudo-relationship. So also not a good thing. It's a fake relationship or a false relationship. So if you're in a romantic relationship with somebody, but they don't actually care about you, there are no real emotions in the relationship, that's a pseudo-relationship. It's not real, so you should leave. Our next example is pseudo-intellectual. So a pseudo-intellectual, intellectual comes from the word intellect, smart, intelligence. An intellectual is a smart person, so a pseudo-intellectual is a person pretending to be smart. So they're not actually that smart, but they're just pretending to be smart for whatever reasons. And our last example for pseudo is pseudo-human. So a pretend human or a false human. And we could use this word with like robots or androids in the future, or even now. But definitely in the future, this word is probably going to become more commonly used as we see more and more androids and robots walking around. We might call them pseudo-human because they might look human, but they're not, right? So they're fake humans. Okay, our fourth prefix is ex, ex. Ex means out or away from, also a Latin word. So first word is exhale. So we can inhale to breathe in, and we can exhale to breathe out. So that's what exhale means, it's to breathe out. Opposite inhale, exhale. Then we have exclude, which again is opposite to include. So if you include somebody in a conversation, they are taking part in that conversation. But if you exclude them from the conversation, you leave them out from the conversation, they're not a part of it, right? They're left out, they're excluded, right? So opposite of include. Then we have the word expatriate, and I am an expatriate. Expatriate are people out from their home countries. We use the short word expat, but it means expatriate. So I live in Thailand, but I'm Canadian. My home country is Canada, but I live in Thailand. I am out from my home country. I am an expatriate. And our next example is example. So the word example is also, because it means taken out from, that's an example. And example is an ex prefix, but everybody knows what an example is. And our last example is exchange for X. And exchange, of course, is I give you something, you give me something. So it's like bartering or trading. We exchange. We also use it for currency exchange as well. I give you dollars, you give me euros, so we can exchange different things as well. Okay, and our final prefix is infra. Infra means under or below. So our first example is infrastructure. So this is usually related to like civil engineering. It's the understructure or the underlying structure of a city or a country. So infrastructure means the roads and the buildings and the cables and the sewer systems, all of this stuff that you need to have before you build your city, right? So infrastructure is super important, of course. Our next example is infrared. So we had ultraviolet, now we have infrared. So again, ultraviolet is the wavelength smaller than violet that we can't see, like UV light. And then infrared light is larger, longer than red, and we also cannot see infrared light. But again, we can use technology to see these wavelengths, but we can't see them with our eyes. Okay, our next one is a very specific medical term, intrapatellar. The patella is the knee, or specifically the knee cap. So like we have the elbow, of course, but on your legs, the knee. So it's under your knee. So you could have like some tear, a ligament, some type of damage. So it'd be an infrapatellar tear or something like that. So very specific medical terminology. But again, we would use infra very commonly in medicine if it's something that's under something. If it's under a bone, under a muscle, under a joint, then infra would be the word that the doctor would use, right? So a lot of medical English about that word. Another example would be infraorbital, orbit being your eye, so it's under your eye. That's where infraorbital means, because your eye, another word for eye would be an orb, because it's a circular shape. So under your eye, infraorbital. And our last example is infrasonic. Sonic means sound, so it's under sound, infrasonic. And that's it. So those are that is the end of our prefix videos. I will not make any more of them, but we had a total of 35 different prefixes over 7 videos. So today's intra, inside or within, ultra, beyond or extreme, pseudo, which of course means fake or false or pretend, X, which is out of or away from, and infra, which is under or below or beneath. Okay, so I hope this video series about prefixes was useful, and I will be moving on to other building vocabulary related videos probably in a couple of days. Okay, so please like, subscribe, and comment, and I will see you in another video. Have a good day. Bye-bye.